And here we go on our Wednesday edition of the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. We're going to do 3 questions here. Scott, you had a good one, so why don't you start us off?
All right. So earlier this week, I texted out to our Football Insider subscribers a question, and it was, what's the biggest reason for the Browns being 5-5 right now? Now, obviously, a lot of things factor into that. It's not just one thing, but I wanted to get an idea of like what's at the top of the list. So I gave them, I want to hear what you guys have to say first before I tell you how they voted. But here are the 6 categories that I gave them. One is coaching, just coaching. When you probably, preparation is probably involved in that, just coaching. Defensive inconsistencies, which can include coaching. Offensive inconsistencies, again, that can include coaching. Injuries, just poor execution on both sides of the ball, which could just be termed players, I guess. And then QB play. I felt that was one thing that probably needed to be a little more specific since Baker gets so much attention. So poor execution, offense, defense, coaching, injuries, QB play. What goes at the top of your list? What has been the biggest problem?
So all of the above was not an option.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, I do think we could go through game by game and like point to like, okay, so this one was quarterback play, this one was offense, like poor coaching, this one was, but yeah, that's a tough one. I always hate to fall back on the injury excuse, but I do feel like that's been a big piece of the season, just like the key guys that have been hurt, and every team deals with that. I mean, the Titans have the best record in the AFC right now, and they've won their last 2 games without Derrick Henry. So I mean, I hate to fall back on the injury excuse, but I do think that has to be part of the discussion, especially because we're talking about they've been without Kareem Hunt now for 4 games. Nick Chubb has been in and out of the lineup. He's only played 7 games. So I think that has to be part of it. I don't know if I would say that's the number one factor though, Mary Kay. What do you think?
You know what? You guys know I'm super quarterback centric when it comes to these kinds of things. So the first thing that comes to my mind is quarterback play, because I do still think that even in games like a 15-10 loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers, that if you have better quarterback play, you're going to win that football game. Your defense held them to 15 points. And on 5 occasions this season, the Browns have held their opponents to 16 points or fewer. And therefore, in my mind, I just think it comes down to a lot to quarterback play. And aren't they averaging right now something like 17 points per game or something like that? That's what the Browns were averaging back in the day when they were really bad and winning, just a couple of games a year. You can't average 17 points a game on offense and expect to do anything. So in my mind, the number one thing is quarterback play. Now, is that tied into injuries this year? Are we going to find out after the season that Baker's going to say, gosh, I just, that harness, I just couldn't throw with that thing on and I was in so much pain and all that kind of stuff. Maybe it is that because he really hasn't been himself since tearing the labrum in week 2. But whatever the case may be, in my mind, it's quarterback play. And if you have to solve that by using Case Keenum for a while or whatever you have to do, you have to fix that or you're not going anywhere this season.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what I was going to put at the top. I do think injuries are important because especially on the offensive side of the ball. Last season, this team was able to, the offense was able to bail out the defense a lot. And they just missing the running backs like they have, the injuries on the offensive line. They never had Landry, Beckham, and Peoples-Jones on the field together this season. And not that would have just solved every problem, but that was a trio that I think everybody was kind of excited to see as they broke camp. And it just, the injuries and Beckham not getting on the field right away. And then DPJ, has the groin thing right when Landry comes back, and it just never happened. So things like that, I do think, but then that kind of plays into poor execution, because even the guys that were out there especially on defense, have had their issues. So I don't know. I do think the injuries can't be overlooked because they've just been just such key people on this team. So as for how our Football Insider subscribers voted, they did not agree with Mary Kay. QB play was last. QB play got actually tied, I guess, for second to last, with just under 9% of the vote with quarterback play, tied with offensive inconsistencies. So people don't really seem to be blaming the offense, or at least not the quarterback as much. Right above them at 12%, injuries. So I think we may be putting a little more on the injury issues than the subscribers are. So then the top three, number 3, coaching, just coaching in general, 18%. Then defensive inconsistency, 20%. And then at 29% is just poor execution on both sides of the ball. And I think just maybe injuries roll into that for some people. A lot of responses, people who texted back saying that they voted for one thing, but they kind of thought about another response as well, and kind of had them together. And I know that injuries obviously have led to that execution issue.
Well, one of the things that comes to mind